What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 41, Episode 7, the Merge 2.0 episode. I thought this was such a fun, action-packed episode. Although I do feel like it would have been better as a 2-hour episode rather than a cliffhanger. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and I feel like I agree with Rachel here. It felt like all of last week was unnecessary because it basically just got summarized in the first 10 minutes of this episode. So it's like having it be week to week doesn't really make sense. Just make it 1 2 hour episode. And I also feel like we said, the cliffhanger wasn't that much of a cliffhanger. Of course, Erica is going to smash the hourglass, and that is what this episode started with.
Last week, it was a lot of good setup for going into this week. In our last podcast for last week's episode, we sort of predicted what was going to happen. So, Erica, the person that can change time, Survivor scholars, the people that can see into the future.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't all that difficult to tell what Erica was going to do. So she comes back and to the immunity challenge and starts explaining it, and I thought this was so funny because she was like, I got to turn back time, and everyone else was like, what the fuck? And then Jeff had to explain for her what had happened, and I was just like, you can tell a twist is stupid if the players are just like, huh, after hearing it, because just say what you mean. Don't give us all this extra floral BS about you turned back time, you changed, give it to us straight, Jeffrey.
But it's also like hearing the phrase turn back time. Like we saw this episode with people saying their gripes about this advantage. It's like WTF. And like we said last week, either Erica, she breaks the hourglass and becomes safe, or, nothing really bad happens to her if and nothing really bad happens to her if she breaks the hourglass, or she keeps the game how it is, doesn't go back in time to change the outcome of the challenge, and then she probably gets voted out this episode. So really, like we were saying, probably a no-brainer for Erica to not break the hourglass. And like we were talking about last week, I was on the side of, oh, this could be Erica's epic intro episode. We haven't seen too much of Erica the whole pre-merge, but then she got a lot of screen time last week. But then Alyssa was on the other side of that, thinking Erica was just getting screen time because she got sent to exile. And so Erica, not a lot of screen time this episode as well, even though it was her decision episode, and she didn't get a lot of screen time in the vote. So maybe it's because Erica was on the immune team after going back in time, so she didn't get a lot of focus on her, and she wasn't like a pivotal person in the whole advantage, blindside, everything like that. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see from Erica going into the next few weeks, because she voted with the people that just sent her to exile. Her whole exile speech was saying she's not going to be a lamb, she's going to be a lion. She wants to backstab all of her OG Blue tribe members. So I just really hope she went with the majority for this vote, because maybe, we saw her and Sydney don't get along. So she just was like, hey, yeah, I'll vote Sydney out. I think I want to see Erica flip on the OG Blue because they just sent her to exile. I want her to be the lion, but we didn't see much of her this episode either.
I thought the funniest thing in this episode was when Jeff said to Erica at Tribal, look at what you did. You caused all of this. Because I was like, that is the most generous interpretation. Erica didn't do anything. Maybe she was the catalyst for what set off all these events, but it's not like she had a hand in the strategy of it all. She kind of just went along with the very people she said she wasn't going to go along with. It's fine. We're fine.
So I'm hoping it's just because Erica thinking, okay, Sydney, let's make it an easy vote. We don't want someone else to get idled out or something like that. Maybe not having the social capital to pull a bigger move off, but we didn't really see much of her. So I do hope we get to see more of Erica, and she doesn't just stay with her OG tribe strong. Her and Heather maybe could flip and make some things happen. But The only good thing to come out of this entire Hourglass debacle, 2-episode merge debacle, was that the memes online on Reddit, everything, were so freaking funny. It was amazing. That was the best thing.
All of the time travel memes were amazing, and I loved them. So if you guys made any of those time travel memes, thank you. If you have time travel memes you want to put in the comments down below, we would love to see more. I feel like I've seen all of them, but you know what? I don't mind seeing repeats. So, yes, do that.
They're so funny. So we go into the actual immunity challenge. It's a foot challenge, which I thought, Survivor, you need to give us a warning on the screen. You can't just be showing all of these high-def foot shots on the screen. Like, you could be selling that online for a ton of money. Like,
yeah, get an OnlyFans.
Yeah, so if I were those people in the challenge, I'd be like, Jeff, no, you have to blur my feet. That is my prized property. I'm selling it on the internet later, so like you cannot just put it on Survivor for free. Especially Sydney doing the challenge. She had her toe ring and her pedicure was still intact. I was so surprised because I'm like, my nails chip so quickly, so I don't know how she's lasting on Survivor with her pedicure intact.
Yeah, but I feel like my favorite part of this immunity challenge was Ricard's bitch face the entire time. Like when Erica said that or when Jeff said that like everyone who was immune isn't anymore, Ricard's served face. He was just so I love him. I love him. I loved the face that he made. I love that he was the eventual winner of the immunity challenge. Ricard, wherever you are, I love you. That's all.
Oh my gosh. I was so stressed in the challenge. It was so close between Evvie, Sydney, Ricard, and literally it's probably a do or die challenge for those 3 people. If Sydney had won, she wouldn't have been voted out this episode. She would have been safe. If Ricard didn't win, people in their exit interviews, stuff like that online, have been saying that Ricard probably would have been voted out in this situation. If Evvie won, then Ricard would probably have also been voted out this episode, and we wouldn't have seen the whole Evvie, Xander, Tiffany, Liana idol play. And if Ricard does go here, I feel like Shan probably was not going to be playing her idol on Ricard like we potentially saw was going to happen this episode. And I'm just like, dang, it was do or die for all of these 3 people.
Yeah, and so that was really high stakes, especially because I feel like they all knew it was do or die. So that was really fun. And I'm kind of glad that it wasn't one of the majority who won because I feel like that would have been less interesting.
Yeah, because then it probably would have just been a split between Evvie and Ricard, but because Ricard won, yay, go Ricard, the first immunity challenge win of this season, it made all eyes go on Evvie to be the potential vote out. And like going back from this challenge, we see Danny was mad that the first challenge that we saw last week didn't matter, and it made it into the episode, and I was like, yes, Danny, you know, this is a lot of the fan base agreeing with you. You can't just change the rules of the game like we were saying last week. You can't just change the fabric of the game. And so I was like, yes, snaps for Danny here for voicing this opinion and his concern about the rule change here.
Yeah, and it's like one of the things that I was less happy about is they immediately had Deshawn say something along the lines of, well, that's the new game now. And it felt very much like the producers were trying to like tell us not to complain when it's like, we have the right to complain. It was dumb. I think it's dumb that Sydney got voted out after winning immunity, especially because I was scrolling through Reddit and they were talking about other times that production has like lied to the contestants, and the other times that they've lied, they've been very careful about like the way that they phrased things, like, oh, you're all living on one beach now, as opposed to, oh, you made it to the merge and stuff like that. So I feel like the fact that they explicitly told them you're immune and then took it back is still like, I know we complained about this a lot last week, but I feel like I gotta say, Danny was 100% right.
It's interesting because I do wonder, like, did production editors leave Danny saying that he didn't like this twist advantage in there? Because even though Jeff said last week, hey, I think this is going to ruffle some feathers, maybe Jeff and production were thinking that a lot of people would enjoy this twist and not have like as many issues of changing the fabric of the game and going back in time, and they would like this decision made by Erica kind of thing. And so they left that in there so that people would dislike Danny. And then conversely, they would like Deshawn because Deshawn was pro Erica hourglass twist versus Danny didn't like it. I was just a little surprised that they would include any kind of dissent of the advantage because I'm like, you'd only include people saying that they love it in there and not include anyone saying that they dislike it.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where, like, maybe they anticipated it wouldn't be popular. I don't know. Either way, I'm glad that they did include it, but I wish that they hadn't done it in a way that was like, oh, get over it. Just because I hate this whole rhetoric of, like, everything is harder now. Like, we get it. Shut up. So
going into, we see some of the Yase 3 plan and advantages. We see this throughout sprinkled of the episode. So starting off, we see Xander saying that he would play the idol for Evvie, but he uses phrases and words like, oh, I would give Evvie the idol, not necessarily play the idol for Evvie. So it seemed to hint that maybe Xander already knew about the knowledge is power advantage. So he was saying phrases like give, you can hold it kind of stuff. And then flashback, we learn that Tiffany tells Evvie about Liana's advantage, and then Evvie tells Xander, which it was such fan fiction. Last week we were just joking, oh, haha, what if Tiffany tells Xander about Liana's advantage, not really thinking that it would happen because Tiffany doesn't necessarily like Xander or want to work with him. But then it did happen. So it was like such fan fiction.
yeah, I just like it definitely I loved it just because we predicted last week that Shan saying this in front of Tiffany would be a bad thing. Like revealing the knowledge is power in front of Tiffany would be a bad thing. And boy, oh boy, were we right. Our fanfic came to life. It was excellent. Because Tiffany ended up telling Xander and Evvie about the knowledge is power advantage. And the Yase 3 played Liana like a fiddle. And it was glorious.
And because of this knowledge is power advantage that people are talking about, it really brings Tiffany, Xander, and Evvie close together, which people now have dubbed online as the Yase 3. And so those three, they might have had some issues before, like we've seen Tiffany rolling her eyes at Xander, catching Xander in lies. But now, because they are pushed into this situation where Evvie is on the chopping block because Evvie was on the winning team, then on the losing team, and then didn't win the immunity challenge, now they're sort of forced to work together. And as underdogs, I feel like everyone, you always want to root for the underdog. So it's hard not to like want to root for them because 3 versus 8, and then Sydney was like maybe sort of on their side. It's such an uphill battle to come back from.
Yeah, I guess I feel like it's one of those things where even if they're just together out of necessity right now because they're the minority, it's still interesting because they've known each other for so long. And I feel like part of the reason they have these kind of gripes with each other is because they've been living together for however many days. And so it's like, it's kind of like when you live with your family for 18 years, of course you're going to get annoyed, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't go like fight for them if someone was trying to talk shit. So,
and it's sort of like what we said last time. We thought that the knowledge is power advantage was so OP because it's not fair that everyone on the island didn't know that this advantage was in play, especially because it's a new advantage never seen before. But now that everyone knows, and like Tiffany, Xander, Liana, Shan, everyone knows, and then we see Xander telling Danny about it, it makes it more equitable.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, again, a lot of the buzz on the internet was that the only reason the knowledge is power advantage was like fun to watch play out was because people knew that it existed. So it's one of those things where like this episode wouldn't have been nearly as interesting if Shan had kept her mouth shut and no one else knew about the knowledge is power advantage, because then it would be like basically like a blindside in a bad way when Liana pulled it out at Tribal. So I feel like it's one of those things where, yeah, like I said, it's more equitable, like you said. And I don't know, I think it also kind of proves that everyone on this season is a little bit of a blabbermouth, because I feel like everyone knows everyone else's business. I don't think there is a single advantage that isn't like at least somewhat common knowledge.
Yeah, like knowing that this kind of OP advantage exists, it just makes the game more fair. Like you were saying, it makes the game more fun because now we can see people strategize, use their strategical chops to try to work around this advantage, because like we've said previously, it just would have been so sad if Liana was like, hey Xander, hey Naseer, let me take your idol, when Xander or Naseer couldn't even like play around this advantage because they didn't know it was even in existence. So yeah, like you were saying, if a lot of people didn't know about this advantage, it would have just been like, hey, give me your idol. And that would have been less fun, because it's so sad when people just get bamboozled when they don't have all of the information, which you can say it's the name of the game, Survivor, but like, I don't know, you just need to tell people what advantages are in play at the beginning of the season, like, hey, there's this new thing, it might come into play this season, so people can strategize around it.
I do think it's funny because part of the reason Liana's downfall like happened was because she seemed to forget that Xander knew about her advantage, or like either forgot or didn't know in the first place that he knew about the advantage. And I guess we can talk more about that when we get to Tribal. But
yeah, I was confused about that because we see Xander telling Danny, and Alyssa and I were texting, and I was like, oh, that's not good. Xander's literally telling Danny, hey, I'm going to keep Evvie safe. I'm going to play the idol for Evvie because I know that Liana has this advantage. So I was like, oh no, they're going to be able to now. Liana's going to know because we see Danny tell Liana about the knowledge is power that Xander knows about. So now Liana can strategize around Xander knowing. So then maybe Liana says, hey, Evvie, do you have an idol? Hey, Tiffany, do you have an idol? Instead of asking Xander, because Xander told Danny that he knew that information. So it could have became like so complicated because all of these people are talking. But yeah, I don't know. I was confused because then we see Liana chatting with Evvie and Xander, pretending to be in with them again, and basically asking like who is going to be holding the idol come Tribal. And Evvie and Xander say, yeah, Xander is going to be holding it, and me, Xander, I'm going to play it for Evvie. And we just see Liana believes it there, and I'm like, I guess I'm sort of confused that is it that easy to believe that Evvie and Xander are telling the truth there and they're not bluffing you? Are Evvie and Xander that good actors that they're tricking people into thinking that Xander is going to play it and he's holding it right now? It just seems sort of odd that Liana seems to underestimate Xander so much. And it was sort of like we were talking about last week, where is Liana's dislike for Xander and wanting to vote Xander out going to be Liana's downfall, which when we talk about if this was a good move or not for Liana, I think this is her downfall. Like, I just don't know why like she would think that Xander is still holding it.
I wonder if it's maybe that Xander has sold his whole like surfer bro, whatever mentality so much. Like, does Liana legitimately think that he's dumb enough that he would do that? And the answer is, I guess, yes. So I don't know. Maybe Liana thinks she has a better social game than she did. Maybe the episode was edited in such a way that it was obvious to us, even if it wasn't obvious to the players. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
I
because it's
think
like
that
everyone, Shan, everyone else was saying, yeah, Liana, take it from Xander. You're going to ask Xander. We don't see anyone considering anyone else as an option to ask if they have the idol or not. And so, I was just confused because everyone but Deshawn and Sydney thought that there might be an issue with the plan. Only Deshawn and Sydney were a little bit nervous, like, oh, if Liana doesn't choose right and she doesn't get that idol, Evvie is going to have an idol and Evvie might play the idol. Someone might play the idol for Evvie. And then Deshawn was really nervous that he was going to get targeted. And Sydney was also nervous that she might get targeted there too. So I wonder, like, is it because 5 people are only up for elimination and 7 people are safe because of the hourglass and because of the immunity challenge, that they just don't care where the votes are going to fall because, oh, if Evvie plays an idol, who cares? Because it's not me who's going to get idled out. It's not me who's accidentally going to go home if this plan fails. It just seems so odd that everyone was so okay with just trying to take this idol and not having any backup plans. And they're all thinking for sure that this is going to work. So I'm like, is it because only 5 people are unsafe and 7 people are safe that nobody wanted to strategize? So I feel like maybe that's another bad thing about this twist.
yeah, I feel like in any twist where the majority of people are going to be safe, I feel like it ruins a lot of strategy because, like, there's just not as much to strategize around. Like, when you put people in a smaller box, they're going to have a harder time maneuvering. So, yeah, I think that it was that only 5 people were up for elimination that made it more difficult, especially because some of them were like de facto safe by the virtue of being a part of the majority alliance. So,
yeah, kudos to Deshawn and Sydney for realizing that they might be up for elimination. But yeah, I don't know. It's just so hard because Deshawn and Sydney maybe were trying to get things to happen, and then we see at Tribal things do happen. But it's like if everyone is just stagnant and they don't necessarily care how the votes go because they're already safe, they either have the immunity necklace or they're safe because of the merge hourglass twist. It's like, how do you convince people to make 3 different backup plans? Oh, if Evvie plays an idol, we're going to vote XYZ. If Evvie doesn't play an idol, we're going to split the votes or we're going to pile them on Evvie. Like, it's just so hard to strategize around. If everyone is safe, you're probably like, yeah, you all figure it out. I don't really care. Like, just tell me what the plan is. So kudos for Deshawn and Sydney for actually trying to maybe flip and make something else happen because they're realizing that this Liana plan might not 100% follow through versus what we were seeing from everyone else. They're just like, thumbs up, Liana, like you got it. But I feel like that sucks for Liana because all of her closest people are like pushing her to do this thing when it's not in Liana's best interest to try to steal this idol from Xander.
I feel like in general, Liana just like did not play well this episode because I feel like her biggest problem was that she never needed to alienate her Yasa tribe members, but she did even when the person that it benefited was not her. Where it's like she could have easily kept playing with Xander, Tiffany, and Evvie and just like gone after Sydney and been fine. And I feel like the fact that she like threw herself in so wholeheartedly with Shan and the Black Alliance was kind of like, it felt like she was playing more with her heart than with her head, because it was like she feels a real connection with these other Black players. She's really excited that she gets to play with other Black players, but 4 is not a majority in a tribe of 12. And so I feel like it's one of those things where Liana could have easily controlled the majority of the votes between the 4 people in the Black Alliance and the Yase 3 that would have given her 7, which is the majority. And it's like she could have done that, but I guess a lot of people are saying that they think that Shan manipulated her. I'm not sure how much of it was manipulation and how much of it is just Liana is 20 years old and doesn't have the best social game and may not have realized that, like, she didn't need to burn bridges with Yase.
Which I definitely think is a good point. And when we talk about, like, is this a good move for Liana, I think those points definitely come into play because, yeah, it's like it's 12 people left. Why are you just alienating the 3 other people that you're just working with? This entire pre-merge team sees like time, even if you hate them, like, I feel like you should pretend to be in the middle or pretend to work with them rather than trying to steal an advantage from them. The first vote of the merge, it's a little bit too soon to be like having 3 people maybe start to dislike you because you openly tried to take something from them at Tribal. But at Tribal Council, the Yase 3, they come together. Xander pulls out this idol, which then we learn that it's a fake idol. If you were sitting there at Tribal, would you be like, hey, Xander, can I look at it closer? Like, you know, it's like, oh, yo, can I see it? Because when you're pulling something out like that, a lot of times it is a bluff when people are bringing out their advantages pre-vote. So I do wonder if anyone thought, like, can I look at it? And then you can look at the strings and beads and stuff.
It just seemed like so obvious to me that it was a bluff. And I guess Liana was so confident about it, she didn't even seem to consider that it could have been a bluff. I do think it was a really good idea for them to give the advantage to Tiffany, though, because it's like if Evvie is the person who isn't safe, the natural progression might be, oh, if Xander doesn't have his idol, he probably gave it to Evvie to play on themselves. And so I feel like giving it to Tiffany was good because she was like the person who was like least involved in the situation and least likely for people to automatically think that she had it.
Especially with the idol, like Shan saw Brad's idol, I think, and then Shan also has another idol. So if Brad's idol and the idol that she got, they were like little totem wood piece idols, maybe you would think, oh, at the other camps they would also be little totem wood piece idols because it's a 3-way idol. They aren't going to make one of beads and one a little stick looking thing. Like, maybe you'd assume that they all look the same. So maybe if Shan saw the beaded Xander fake idol, you'd maybe be like, yo, Xander, can I look at that? Because you know, you've seen some idols on this season before and you know what it looks like. Maybe that would ring some alarm bells. But I do agree. Xander giving the idol and the extra vote to Tiffany to hold on to was really good. Good strategy. Maybe it's because we as the viewers know all of the information, but I agree with you. I felt like it was sort of obvious, especially because Liana knows that Xander knows that she has this knowledge is power advantage. Why would Xander then continue to hold on to his idol if he knows Liana is planning on stealing it tonight? If Yase 3 didn't know about this advantage, then sure, picking Xander would have made sense because Xander doesn't know you have a steal an idol advantage. He's probably still holding on to the idol. The level 2 strategy would be giving Evvie the idol to hold, like you're saying, but that's a little bit dangerous because Liana could easily ask Evvie, hey, Evvie, do you have an idol? Because Liana knows, Evvie and Xander know that she have this advantage. Xander would try to pawn off the idol, give it to someone else. Level 3, what we saw is giving Tiffany the idol to hold. People maybe think, oh, Evvie and Xander are a twosome. Tiffany is a little bit on the outs of that. So that's the person that they would least suspect would maybe get the stuff to hold because they don't see them as close with Tiffany, even though, at least for this vote, they're willing to let Tiffany hold on to the stuff.
I think it's interesting too that it was never like brought up or at least never shown to us that they considered going after Xander's advantage, so the extra vote, or Naseer's idol. And I feel like it's one of those things, or Deshawn's advantage. And it's one of those things where I wish that they would have like at least mentioned like why they chose specifically Xander, because it's like Naseer, it didn't seem like is part of the alliance, so like that should have been equally viable. And I understand why Liana wouldn't have used it on Deshawn because he's a part of the Black Alliance, but like, come on.
Yeah, I think people were saying that Naseer was a target, and we hear like Evvie telling Naseer when the whole live tribal happened, like Naseer, everyone was wanting to vote you out today. And I think from like Sydney's exit interviews was saying that Naseer was a potential target and Liana might have stolen his idol, but maybe like the men shot it down because of the whole men versus women number thing on the island right now. But it is, yeah, it's like stealing Xander's idol versus Naseer's idol kind of thing. It's like maybe there were other targets, but with the editing, we didn't get to see it. But I thought the Yase 3, they had good acting at Tribal. They were like, yeah, I'm giving you the idol Evvie kind of thing. I'm playing it on you. I'm holding it right now. They were like fake mad at each other. And it was just so exciting. That first part when Liana is asking, do you have an idol, Xander? And then Xander says, no, but you can have this fake.
That moment was just beautiful. I like everything else that you said evaporated from my head because I just like the energy of Xander being like, you can have this fake, like all other thoughts, I do not have them.
I know, it's funny because both of them were probably practicing their speeches before Tribal Council, like Liana practicing her speech of what she would say to segue into, hey, Xander, let me take your idol. And then Xander is probably also practicing his speech of, hee, I got you on this one. Like, you thought you were going to get me, but I got you. So I'm like, oh, it's just so funny how it turned out where both people think that they're going to get one up on the other person, but then you know, you both can't get one-ups on each other, but one person has to come out victorious here.
Yes, and Xander was the winner. And I thought it was so interesting too because it wasn't like Tribal ended there. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't like, oh, Liana failed to steal the advantage, so now our entire plan is up in dust. Like they considered the fact that like, yeah, they still have the idol, but are they going to play it for Evvie or not? And it's just, everything was beautiful. I feel like this was one of the few times I did not mind there being a live tribal, though I have seen people being like, it kind of undermines the point of like playing an advantage if you give people time to like regroup right after it. So
I thought the live tribal was interesting going into the episode when we hit the 30-minute mark and we were already at Tribal Council. I was like, for sure, something is going to go down here because Tribal Council is never that long. So we see it's a potential 8 versus 4 after the whole idol steal doesn't happen, where it's the 4 in the minority is the Yase 3 and Sydney. The 8 realize that they are going to split the votes in case maybe Evvie plays the idol or they give the idol to Sydney to play. But I thought this was interesting because Sydney in her exit interview was saying that they thought that Erica lost her vote because every time someone has come back with an advantage or gone to the island, the Shipwheel Island place, they always had to risk something in order to gain something. So people thought that Erica wasn't actually going to be voting here. And so it wouldn't be like a 4-4-4 split if the 8 split that way, but it would be like a 4-3-4 split if Sydney did keep her vote and voted. So I thought that was interesting because it's like, yeah, is that a little bit unfair? Every other person had to risk something to gain something. So it does make sense that people didn't think Erica had her vote. So they were strategizing around no vote for Erica versus Erica did have a vote. She didn't lose anything from hitting that hourglass.
And I'm still upset about that, but it's fine. I guess it's one of those things where like Erica not having a vote wouldn't have actually changed the outcome at all, would it?
Not necessarily, because we see Deshawn plays his extra vote to make it 5-4-3 because we see Sydney play the shot in the dark, which for Sydney, you know, she says when she's walking out like, I should have just kept my vote and voted, because if Sydney did vote, she could have potentially tied it up. 5 votes Evvie, 5 votes Sydney, and then on the revote, Evvie would have probably been voted out. But Sydney, because she thought Erica wasn't voting, didn't think it would be such a close tie. So maybe it could have changed things there. So like I feel like you can't fault Sydney for doing the shot in the dark because she had no idea that the votes would have been 5-4. Like, you know?
Yeah, it just I felt bad, but also like I don't know. It's one of those things where did anyone ask Erica if she had a vote?
I mean, we didn't see it, maybe, but it's like maybe
like
Sydney and Erica
operating
weren't
under the
talking.
assumption that she didn't have a vote, like just ask her and assume that she is telling you the truth. Like,
Yeah. Maybe the majority knew that she was voting, and so they could split it 4-4, and then they used Deshawn's extra vote to make it for sure a 5-4 split kind of thing. But maybe because Erica and Sydney don't really talk from what we saw on the season, that, you know, why would Erica tell Sydney if she has a vote or not kind of thing.
yeah, I don't know.
I think more kudos for Deshawn here. Deshawn, in this whole live tribal chaos, he is saying, Evvie to Xander, Evvie told me all about your advantages and everything on the idol trip. And in that episode, we thought because Evvie and Deshawn went to this island trip together, wondered if this island trip where Evvie was telling Deshawn everything about everything on this tribe, that it would come back and bite them in the butt, which maybe it did a little bit. It's hard to tell. Maybe Evvie told Xander what Evvie told Deshawn at the island trip previously, so it wouldn't affect Xander maybe not playing the idol for Evvie this time or something like that. But I thought it was cool that Deshawn was trying to do everything to try to save himself, trying to bring up all of that Evvie information, and Deshawn realizing that he might be on the block now because Evvie and Xander still have an idol, so he throws out Sydney's name again to try to save himself and to try to split the votes on Sydney. So I thought Deshawn did really well this episode, and maybe it's because he was on the block for elimination, but like the other people up for elimination, we didn't see them trying to fight that hard.
Yeah, did I cut out there?
No, you're good.
I don't know what happened. Okay. I don't know. I think, like you said, good on Deshawn. I wish that there had been a little bit more like scrappiness. I also wish that it had been a little bit easier to figure out who was voting for whom and why, because I couldn't figure out how the vote got split between Deshawn and Sydney. Like, I understood that a lot of the majority just kept with the plan of Evvie, but like confusion. So
sucks for Sydney. No jury. She just gets sent home on the trip, maybe if they're doing a pre-jury trip, but with the pandemic, maybe not. No trips for them. So that sort of sucks. It's one of those rare cases where you make it to the merge, but you don't make it to the jury phase. And so it just feels bad because it's like you want to make it to the merge as a milestone. You want to make it to the jury as a milestone. So Sydney just came up just short after being immune from the first ball challenge.
And Sydney never cast a single vote on this season of Survivor. So I feel like that's a milestone too, just not a good one.
Yeah, I think something else interesting from the tribal council was Xander saying not to play the idol. And I think Tiffany is really coming into her own now. Previously, in other episodes, we saw how paranoid she was with the Voce vote and also her failure to cross the balance beam at the challenge. People were sort of down on Tiffany, but now I feel like Tiffany has become less paranoid and is trying to make moves. So I'm like, kudos to Tiffany as well for not being paranoid about this vote, holding on to all of these advantages. And when the time came when Jeff was like, any idols, do you want to play them? Tiffany asks Xander, what should I do? This idol, this advantage isn't mine. So Xander, you tell me what to do.
I thought that was a really good move for Tiffany too, because it's like, it allows her to kind of like keep the heat off her. like, if it hadn't gone the way that she wanted it to, like, Evvie couldn't have been mad at Tiffany because Tiffany was just doing what Xander said to do with his idol, so.
Yeah, win-win for Tiffany if Evvie got voted out or not. I feel like good for Xander for saying not to play the idol, whether or not he thought that the votes would get Evvie voted out or not. Xander keeping this idol for his group, whether it is the three of them or just Tiffany and Xander next time if Evvie did get voted out here. Maybe because of this, he was willing to let Evvie go at this point in time so that he could keep the idol for next time, because it would just suck if you wasted the idol on Evvie. Evvie didn't get the most amount of votes to go, and you're still in a minority next week, but you don't even have an idol for protection. So I do wonder, did Xander really think that his plan was going to work and Evvie wouldn't catch all of the votes? Or was he just willing to let Evvie go at this point? Like, hey, we did all that we could. He just wanted to keep his idol so he could have some safety next week when he's still probably on the bottom.
I think that it's probably true either way, but it's also one of those things where an idol is expendable in the sense that, like, Xander is not going to get from a 3-person minority to an 8-person majority just by playing his one extra vote and his one idol. So I think it's one of those things where he was willing to risk it this time because he was more or less confident that Evvie would not be the one voted out. So
yeah, I would say having a 3-person alliance is good. He kept an ally in the game, and he gets to keep his idol for next time when we see in the preview all 3 of their names are all going to be thrown out there. So they need to win immunity and maybe play the idol to save the other one of the 2 in the bottom with them. And yeah, I don't know. I do worry though, because I feel like a 3-person trio is dangerous. You sort of want to become a 2-person duo because that allows you to slip through more cracks and then potentially make it to the end. If you're a 3-person team and you're already on the bottom, you're going to just continue to be targeted until people think, oh, I can work with them moving forward. So I do wonder, because Xander and Evvie are closer, maybe next time they'll say, yeah, we'll let Tiffany go here, even though those 3 were working closely this time, because a 3-person alliance when you're on the bottom is a lot harder to navigate than a 2-person alliance when you're on the bottom, because with 2 people, I feel like other people would be more willing to work with you and bring you into their majority alliance to try to vote out other people that their majority already doesn't like. But with 3 people, it's just sort of hard to bring you in because 3 is a lot versus 2.
3 is a crowd. I do wonder if the Evvie Deshawn Xander thing is going to have any fallout though, because like it seems like even if Xander didn't choose to like bail on Evvie during tribal because of what Deshawn said, like that could still be something that he brings up at when they get back to camp, and it's like, hey, it's not cool that you told some random dude about my advantages. So like maybe it won't be Evvie and Xander, maybe it'll be Xander and Tiffany, and they'll be the next Malcolm and Denise. So
It'll be interesting to see next time how that all plays out. So for Liana, what could Liana have done differently? And was this a good or bad move for Liana? What are your thoughts on good or bad move?
I think bad move. Like I said earlier, I don't think that she needed to burn her bridges with the Yase 3 as soon as she got to the new tribe. I think she could have had a really good position, like playing with the Black Alliance and also playing with the Yase 3, or at least not antagonizing the Yase 3 to the point where they're probably never going to want to work with her again.
Mm-mm. I
It's
agree.
like,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like maybe she could have been like, I'm sorry, Evvie, I have to vote for you because this is what my alliance wants, but I really don't want to. Or like done something to that effect. And then later been like, hey, Evvie, you didn't get voted out. Maybe I flipped to vote Sydney, even though my alliance didn't want to vote Sydney. Or like, there are ways that she could have twisted this situation where she could have kept both alliances happy. And it seems like she was just so focused on screwing Xander over with the advantage play that she like didn't care about what was best for her strategically.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Liana sort of did a little bit too much this episode. Like we were saying, it's only the merge. There's still 12 people left. We haven't even hit the jury yet. Like one of the things, you could have just let Evvie get voted out or let Xander play the idol on Evvie so it flushes the idol. And if Liana really wanted to steal an idol, you take Naseer's idol if you really wanted an idol. I feel like it's just using the knowledge is power advantage now does feel a little bit early considering how many people are left in the game. And if you're going to have a public idol at 12, that's a little bit dangerous because now, you know, they're targeting Naseer because he has an idol. They're targeting Xander because Xander has an idol. If now you get the idol from someone, wouldn't people want to target you because you also have an idol? Versus, I guess maybe it's because the knowledge is power advantage got told and a lot of people know about it, that it sort of pushed it to the forefront and you sort of have to use it right now because so many people know about it rather than trying to save it for the future. But also a lot of people online are saying, oh, this is Shan's fault that Liana wasn't able to steal an idol, that her knowledge is power advantage got messed up. But I would say I would disagree. Even though Shan spilled the beans by saying, hey, Liana, what advantage did you get in front of Tiffany? I feel like there was ways to come back from that where Tiffany knows, hey, Liana got an advantage. Maybe Liana could have said, no, I didn't get an advantage in that group. Or she didn't really have to tell Tiffany the exact what is the knowledge is power advantage, right? When we see Tiffany and Liana talking on the beach, Liana could have told Tiffany, yeah, I got an extra vote or I got a steal a vote because everyone else that came back from the island, they got an extra vote or something of that nature. And Liana knows, Liana knew probably what the whole Brad steal a vote was because Tiffany went on that nighttime journey. So I felt like Shan saying Liana has an advantage in front of Tiffany was not the downfall of the advantage. I felt like maybe Liana could have lied to Tiffany in that fact and said, no, I got an extra vote, because Tiffany knowing about the knowledge is power led to everything else happening.
Well, I think specifically Liana wanting to play the knowledge is power on Xander is what led to everything else happening. And I think that if Shan truly wanted the best thing for the Alliance, it wouldn't have necessarily been Liana immediately using the knowledge is power advantage on Xander. I think that Shan could have easily said, no, don't play this. We don't need to take this idol from Xander right now. And that would have been like a valid move. But I think it was good for Shan that Liana was targeting Xander, because that means that Liana now doesn't have the Yase 3 as her connections anymore, which means that Liana is entirely dependent on the Black Alliance, which Shan, I feel like, might be like the de facto leader of, since she was kind of the one who started it by bringing in Liana, by bringing in Danny and Deshawn, and being like, hey, maybe we could all work together. So I think it's one of those things where Liana is now unequivocally Shan's number, because Shan didn't offer any alternatives to Liana going after Xander. I don't know if it was intentional that Shan shared it in front of Tiffany, and I wouldn't say that it's her fault necessarily, but I think it would be naive to say that Liana burning bridges with Yase wasn't a very good thing for Shan. And so maybe Shan could have stopped this and just didn't want to.
I feel like you were saying, is Shan the mastermind here? Because is this on purpose or not? Because I agree, in this situation, Shan is alienating Liana from all of her Yase 3 former Alliance members. She is cutting Shan off, or she's cutting Liana off, like, no, Liana, you only have me. You do not have all of your OG tribe mates. You only have me. So if it's on purpose, it's like, dang, kudos for that, because you are really alienating your Alliance members. Like, you can't have any other friends but me, so you automatically become that person's number one. It's sort of like Ricard is really only attached to Shan on the Green Tribe, like we saw now, because of Shan pushing Liana to play this extra vote, telling about the to use this knowledge is power advantage, telling Tiffany about this advantage, like it alienates Liana from the original Yase 3 members, and then continuously pushing them all to, yeah, we're going to vote Evvie, encouraging Liana to play her advantage, steal the idol, and all of that. I'm like, dang, is this on purpose? Because if it is, that is insanely. I felt like it would be good gameplay. It seems like you were like, oh, that would be bad gameplay for Shan. Liana should have the other 3 people, but I feel like if Shan can continue to form an army where she cuts off the other people in her group, where Liana's only person is Shan, where Ricard's only person is Shan, Shan can create an army of people who have no other friends. They have no other options.
Yeah, and I guess it's like, was that her intention? Maybe. And I guess, like, we didn't see as much of Shan this episode. We also didn't see as much of Ricard this episode. And honestly, I was interested in seeing more of him, just because it's like he won immunity, so he was safe. But I would have liked to see where he fits into this merged tribe, especially since, like we said, it seemed like his only person was Shan.
Yeah, seems like Shan doesn't like it when her alliance members have other advantages, so she tries to take it from them, or effectively she flushed Liana's OP advantage of the knowledge is power advantage, so now Liana doesn't have any protection. So whether it's on purpose, that's great gameplay. You cut everyone else off at the knees and you make all of your teammates the only person that they have is you, so you effectively become their number 1. If it's not on purpose, then for Shan, it might just be like sloppy or mistakes. But either way, she's creating a little army right now of people who have no other friends, really. So I think that'll be interesting to like continue to look for in the future, if she can continue to like get people on her side and then get rid of their advantages, like we saw with like Jeannie and Brad, and then JD too, and then have them be only loyal to her, really.
Yeah, so I don't know though, because I feel like that also is a strategy that could very easily backfire, just because it's like, if you're Liana, you might be like pissed off because your alliance members didn't help, like, you know. So I don't think that Liana will be mad at Shan because of what happened. Like, I don't think that she will be like, you told him, like, I don't think that will happen, but it would be interesting to see, like, if there will be ramifications for Shan. So
yeah, I think for Liana also, with this knowledge is power, there was other things that she could have done. Like we were saying, you don't tell Tiffany the real advantage. Say it was an extra vote that she won or something. I guess that would be going back in time. So here, Liana does tell Tiffany the knowledge is power, the real advantage. Then I feel like to cross off all of her bases, Liana would then have to go and tell Evvie, at least, maybe Xander, but at least Evvie, because we saw Evvie, Liana, and Tiffany were close on Yase. Like, go and tell Evvie, hey, I got this advantage when I went to the island. This is what the advantage is. Because we see all of the Yase people are so angry at Liana because Liana kept the advantage a secret from them. So once Liana told Tiffany, a way to maybe make the Yase people not so angry with her would be to tell Evvie about the advantage as well. Or I felt like when we see Evvie's name get brought up, we see that Liana is like nervous about it. She doesn't want Evvie to go home right now because her and Evvie are close. So maybe Liana could have pushed harder to get the target off of Evvie and then vote Naseer or Sydney out here, rather than playing the knowledge is power, rather than stealing Xander's idol. Because I don't know, it's sort of interesting, I guess, how quickly Liana folded, of not trying to switch the target off of Evvie versus just going to play the knowledge is power advantage instead.
I think it's interesting though, because Liana had said before, like, that she regretted not pushing harder to switch the vote from Voce to Xander. So I feel like it's one of those things where you should have learned your lesson last time about, like, if you want something done, you need to push for it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So
And I think another option, you could have just let Evvie get voted out here and let Xander play the idol for Evvie, because it would flush Xander's idol. That's one less idol in the game. This season, we don't know, will that idol get rehidden, or are these 3 idols the only 3 idols in the game for the entire game because they are a shared idol? Like we were saying before, I just feel like there's no need to burn your bridges with the Yase OG people right now when it's just the merge. You didn't need to steal the yellow advantage right now. Just let Evvie get voted out, let Xander play the idol on Evvie, and steal Naseer's idol or something like that. So you can play the middle, and I think Liana, if she effectively played the middle with like Danny, Deshawn, and Shan on one side, and then also had the Yase 3 of Evvie, Xander, and Tiffany on the other side, she would be in such a powerful position because she had so much information coming to her. But now that she burned all those bridges with Xander, Tiffany, and Evvie, it's just, I feel like Liana's in a bad spot now.
Yeah, Liana is basically only with the Black Alliance now. She doesn't have any power of her own. All of her power is coming from the fact that she has this alliance. And I guess with Deshawn having used his extra vote, do they even have any advantages within that alliance anymore?
I don't think so. Or Shan's idol and Shan's extra vote, so they
But
still got 2
Ricard
things.
have both of those?
No, I think Ricard gave it back 2 episodes ago. The extra vote, at least.
I can never keep track of these things. Okay, but yeah, I guess we'll have to see how this plays out for Liana, but I definitely don't think that she's in a position where she could win. Like, any chances she had of being a winner, I feel like kind of went down the toilet, because any person facing her, like, anyone on the jury would be like, Liana, I need you to tell me how this was a good move in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think she could justify it, so.
Especially the jury is going to be small. If there's 11 people left now, the jury maybe starts next week, 3 people at the final 3. 8 people on the jury, 3 of those people are the Yase 3 that Liana just screwed over by trying to steal the idol. Maybe those 3 people are bitter and won't want to vote for her at the end. Maybe they're not, and there's no harm, no foul here, but it would be nerve-wracking to go into a final 3 where you have 3 people on the jury that might be butthurt about this. And you said you weren't going to steal from us, Liana. You said all of us are working together. So, like, what happened? So I don't know. I'd be nervous if I were her, because you could have been in such a good position, and then now it's like you sort of messed it up.
Yeah, so I guess this episode, I feel like, kind of made up for the crappiness of last episode. Stuff actually happened. It was really great. We shared all of our opinions, but we'd love to hear what you think about this episode down in the comments below. And we will see you guys next week for another episode of